Welcome to the Reef of Horrors, Volume 2, with special guest. I'm so excited. I can't hold it back. Mr. Jack Durr. Jack the Ripper Durr. I don't know. We got to give you a Halloween name here. Hey, Jack, how you doing?
Yeah, I guess that's pretty easy. Your name's Jack. Jack-o'-lantern. Jack. Yeah, it pretty much goes. I'm doing good.
You can come up with whatever you want.
And it is the season. I've been kind of like embracing it slightly with some of the photos I'm posting. It's like I post things like orange, or I posted something the other day. I don't know if you've seen the TV show Last of Us on HBO.
I played the video game though a long time ago.
Well, the video game would equate to the right thing. So I have no, you weren't on that dive. You were gone that day. It's a close up of a 2-spot octopus. Its eye, it's totally looks like a clicker from The Last of Us. And I'm like,
oh.
But I posted it, and I am bad at my subtleties with the way I assume everybody has the same thought process as me. And I thought for sure everyone would get that. And it's like, everyone's like, wow, pretty photo. I'm like, well, yeah, it is a pretty photo, but no one gets the Last of Us part of it. It's a clicker. It has the big, it looks like one of those things. I don't know.
Yeah. I hate it when other people can't read my mind. It drives me nuts, right? Like, come on.
Yeah.
That was funny.
I'm like the Mr. Reference obscure things, and it's like no one ever gets it.
Well, hopefully
unless I go to Comic-Con or something, then people go.
There you go. Exactly. You have to have the right audience. Then everyone will get your references. So if you're tuning in today, no, you haven't tuned into the wrong podcast. This is still the Dive Table, but this is volume 2 of our annual Reef of Horrors show in honor of All Hallows Eve, Halloween. And again, we got to give credit where credit's due. So I'm a huge Simpsons fan. I have been for a very long time. It's wild because I think I can remember when I was the same age as Bart. Like Bart and I were technically the same age. So it's been a while. Excuse me. But in honor of The Simpsons, because The Simpsons every year for however 30 whatever years it is now, they release a Halloween special they call the Treehouse of Horrors, where they tell 3 stories, either remixed, from classic, stories and scary tales, or they make up their own that feature the Simpsons as the characters in an only Simpsons way. And so we have adopted the Treehouse of Horrors, but adapted it for our scuba context, and we call it the Reef of Horrors. And this is volume 2. And I'm so happy to share it with you, Jack. So you ready to get into the fun of this episode?
I do feel honored that you chose me to speak in this realm, because, I'm good at like joking around and poking fun. And I was sitting there like going, oh, how can I be like, yeah, what is scary? I dove with you. No, I'm just kidding.
That is a scary experience, isn't it? Yeah, you never know where I'm going to pop up next.
So I'm like going, no, that doesn't work. He's a good diver, really. So it's like, where are these? I'm trying to reference how could I get that snuck in there,
I love it.
I do make fun of myself, though. It's like fins everywhere.
Yeah, no. Well, good. So to set this one up very quickly, you and I have each prepped 3 scuba horror stories, and we'll just go back and forth and share our scuba Reef of Horrors Halloween special stories and laugh about them and bounce off each other. It'll be a lot of fun. So let's get into this one in the Reef of Horrors Volume 2. It's the best scary voice I've got. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Your house is not haunted. It's just me. All right, I'll tell the first one. I'll go the first one here. So this first Reef of Horrors scuba horror story is the tale of the neglected octo. The tale of the neglected octo. So this one, a caveat here, is not me, but it's someone we all know who we refer to as Dan. So if you can figure it out who that is, you'll know whose octo this was. So here's how the story goes. A diver, unknown diver, who in the context of diving in lakes, and specifically in lakes in Texas, we have a big infestation of what's called zebra mussels, which are basically, they look like clams or mussels, and they're an invasive species because nothing really eats them, and they just overtake a lake like crazy. Once they're in there, it just goes nuts, and they're everywhere. So this particular diver, who also happens to be a professional diver, a dive master, was using his gear for however long, and like most of us do, as mechanics might do, as they know, their car needs service, they know it'll go a little longer, had maybe pushed off his, servicing of his gear, specifically the gear that would be shared with a diver, like someone in an open water class that needed to share gas or share air. The octopus, the octo, that bright yellow, in the triangle device that might save someone's life. He may have pushed the envelope on the service timeline of this. And so the tale goes that he decided at one point to finally service this piece of equipment because it is something that may be needed on a dive, and brought it into his local dive shop. And as they opened up the second stage regulator, so the one that you actually breathe off of, as they opened that up, to the horror of the service technician, it was packed full of zebra mussels. Oh. Now, luckily, no one ever had to receive that octo in the course of a dive. But the tale goes that, imagine a diver, a nice open water diver, who's just on dive 3, day 2 of their open water, real open water course. And for whatever reason, they panic, or for whatever reason, they didn't check their gas or change their tank. Things happen, right? Things happen, Jack, right? It might happen. Can you imagine that poor diver who goes to this particular unnamed diver and says, I'm out of gas, in whatever way they will, right? An open water diver, maybe they just like bug eyes and freak out. And Daniel, unknown diver, sorry, unnamed diver, looks at that open water student
who happens to have a name that sounds like.
That's the name that sounds like Annual. There you go. It just sounds like Annual. First name sounds like Deucer. Yeah, there we go. Deucer Annual. There you go. Can you just imagine an open water diver and they go, I'm out of gas, big bug eyes, and cool and smooth. I'm a pro. I got this. I reach into my triangle of goodness. I pull out my big yellow hosed octo, and I go, I got you, and shove that baby right to that open water diver. And can you imagine the horror that person would have of breathing off of that? I think they would be out of scuba right then and there. They might get to the surface because I don't think it inhibited completely the function. I'm sure quite a bit, but completely. But they would have been breathing the carcasses and nastiness of zebra mussels.
Were they alive still, or are they dead? So that's my thing. Is like, how long? I mean, if you're diving enough and that, like, you've kept it wet enough that they're alive and like growing in there, or was it like truly like dead shells?
From what I saw the pictures, that's all I can comment on. The pictures look like dead, because they come out of the water for a week and die. The real question I have for this particular unnamed diver is, how'd you not smell that, bro? Right, stink in your truck for days.
Yeah, so you haven't experienced this yet. Where, I mean, you may have, but we have these bait balls in San Diego, little sardine type things, and they'll just come in like swarms. And at night, they don't realize you're there, and they just plow into you, and they'll like embed themselves in all your dive gear. So one of my friends on this one night, he goes, "Yeah." Next morning, he dove and then he threw his stuff in his trunk. I was going to rinse it the next day, and he pulled it out. And it was like stinking, and embedded into parts of his BCD, he had all these like anchovy or sardines stuck inside of his BCD, just rotting away overnight. I'm like, oh, yeah.
I don't know which one's worse, that stank or the stank of like your dry suit after like 7 days of using the same undergarment on a dive trip. Like, I don't know which one's worse.
Yeah, that's TMI. Wash it.
Sometimes you don't have a washing machine, and you're in the ocean. So sometimes you just live with the stank.
Yeah,
it doesn't bother anyone under the water.
So that just the thought of the stuff in the octo. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I bought a regulator early on, because I remember taking my open water class in the rental, and it's like the first breath off it in the pool is like, and it's like sand. I'm like, so I just imagine like going and sucking in all this like zebra mussels. That would kind of suck. Like,
yeah, that would suck. I wish that it was discovered like because he was testing it underwater. That would have been funnier.
It's a little gritty.
Just crunch. Man, this is gonna be a tough episode. I've been recovering from this cough, and every time I laugh, it makes me cough. So I'm just gonna be coughing throughout this whole episode. It's gonna be terrible. All right, so the tale of the neglected octo.
We'll put you on 100% oxygen.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like I need it at this point. The tale of the neglected octo. If there's a positive in this, is to service your gear regularly, and especially if you have that octo that just sits there for however long, because it never gets used unless it needs to be used to confirm its function, form, and then it's not full of dead animals. Would probably be a good idea.
Yes. I mean, I know that mine probably needs to be serviced, because when I go and breathe off it, it's just kind of, I'm like, okay, I can deal with that because that's mine. I'm donating the long hose. So like, okay, I can deal with that. Knowing that I'm giving up the good one to somebody else.
Have you ever used the trick of like, I wonder what that Scuba Pro MK19 breathes like?
Well,
and then you just go to somebody and be like, I'm out of gas. That has that. I donate the long hose.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've done that before, where you're like breathing off your own regulator, and it's like, because I like diving my aluminum 80. I get it, and I'm diving with people that have steel 100s, and their air consumption's as good or better than mine, and they go, here, share some air, and I'm breathing off theirs, and I'm like, wow. Is that how a regulator's supposed to breathe? Like, is it maybe I need to service my regulators, or is it they're just that much better? I mean, it's just
yeah, it's true. Though the funniest part about sharing gas is, and we're already on a tangent, but it's kind of funny, is when you train with someone too often, when you know what to expect, the flavor to expect when you put their reg in your mouth from a gas share. I'm either getting Monster or Cologne. It's one of those two when I do this gas share. So here it comes. Oh, it's Monster today. That's a little bit nicer. Oh, that tastes good. The Cologne days is always like, whoa, it's too much, but I gotta breathe, so deal with it. So
yeah, don't want to go there. I'm too OCD for that stuff. I just don't want to think about it. It's like,
don't think about it.
Flush the regulator a few times, and then no, I can wait. Let's just flush this a few times. Purge, flush.
You just out of gas and you just hand it back. Like, no, I'm just gonna hold my breath as long as I can. I'm not putting that in my mouth more.
Yep. We'll just simulate this now.
Over to you for your first Reef of Horror story.
Okay, so we've probably I'm hoping everyone's traveled at some point in time. They've gone outside their ordinary environment, and dove other places. And I travel to Mexico. It's not my normal place. It would be in the Playa del Carmen area. And I bring my dry suit because I'm going cave diving, right? And you go to the dive shop, they always take care of you. Like, you can rinse your gear, you can hang it up, and all this stuff like that. I'm like, wow, this is really convenient. Then go out to eat that night, have some beer or whatever, get ready for the next morning, come back, all your gear's right there, take it off, and just, get ready to go to the dive. So that was the normal method. That's how it all started. And then one day, one of the guys that was a tourist, not tourist, when I say tourist, someone visiting, okay, cave diver, did that with all his gear. And we were at one of the dive sites. And I saw the guy walking around. Yeah, no big deal. This big guy, he's like, great dive. And I'm like, wow, your dive was a little short. And I didn't think anything of it, right? Just kind of like, no big deal. Just went, whatever. Later on that day, after all our dives were done, he was still at the dive shop because I think he was doing like his full cave or one of those things. So he was going through classes and stuff. And then he pulls this out. I'm going to share my screen. So this will go on your computer part. So just bear with me for 1 second. So he sits there and goes, yeah, I cut it short because I had something in my wetsuit booty. And I'm like, your wetsuit booty? And I'm like, what? Like rocks? What's in there thinking? And what it was this. Okay, so this is just like to give you a little size perspective.
Oh my gosh.
This is a scorpion. This is a blurry picture. Here's a nice clear one.
Oh my gosh.
It is at least the size of a business card.
Yeah.
This was in his wetsuit booty. He dove for like an hour with this thing in his wetsuit booty. And I'm like freaking out at the dive shop going, so did it sting you? It was, oh yeah, at least 2 or 3 times. I'm like, aren't you supposed to go to the hospital now? So, I'm like going, I know that they're supposed to be like kind of deadly, I think. And I'm like, maybe I don't know something, but this guy's walking around not thinking too much of a big deal. I'm like going, he goes, yeah, it was like a bee sting. I'm like, still, doesn't it like inject poison into you? Shouldn't you be like going to the hospital? And he's like, nah, I think I'm okay. And I'm like, he was a big guy. So maybe it's just that, body mass, blood to the amount of poison that was injected. But he was like walking around and he's still doing the classroom afterwards. And I'm like, and he walks this thing around. I'm like going, holy crap. And I go, where was your stuff? He goes, oh, I was storing it right over there. Needless to say, after that point, the only thing I kept there were like fins, basic things. I took my dry suit with me back to where I was staying after that. And then I always inverted. And then before I put everything on, I'm like shaking it. I'm like going, I do not want that inside my dry suit. No. I'm just like, I'm picturing not just inside my booty where he like squished it and got stung a few times while he in the process of getting killed. By the way, it got him on the inside of his instep. Oh. Oof. So, yeah. So, wow. So to me, it's more like beware of the critters that you may not be aware of that are crawling around on your stuff at night. I mean, it's bad enough that I always had this like, so this is where I was going. Maybe it's not scary stories, but it's more like Jack's little new phobias are popping up everywhere that I didn't know I had. So it's like being enclosed in a dry suit, for example, with this scorpion in there. It's like, no, that's not a good thing.
I know that sounds like some sort of mafia torture or something.
It's like, well, like, even if it's just like some sort of bug, I'm like crawling around. I'd like, So I'm like, now whenever I travel, the dry suit goes with me back to the room now, and I turn it inside out and make sure it's all clear before I put it back to, for the next day. It's like, so it's more like, just the thought of having that stuck to your body and being underwater in a cave somewhere where you can't just like pop to the surface.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but and it's like, and I'm like, you didn't feel that? He goes, yeah, somewhere in the dive I felt this thing. I'm like, no, didn't you feel it when you're walking to the?
Yeah, no kidding, right? Like, would you put it on and you feel it was a little off? No.
No, apparently, yeah. I didn't quite get that one, but I guess everyone has different sensitivities to things. So
I
maybe that's why
guess.
he was able to put up with this being stung while he's on his dive.
I guess. Yeah, that would yeah, talk about there's a good training module for some crazy agency out there. Like, this is the truly task load you. We stick scorpions in your dry suit and see if you can still do a valve drill. Go for
Yeah,
it.
concentrate, conserve air,
Yeah,
breathe
exactly.
easy, try to be
Don't
relaxed.
worry about the wiggly things crawling up your legs. Those are it's just normal. Everything's normal.
Okay, I'm having one of those ants crawling me on me feelings.
Yeah, exactly. Oh god. Yeah.
Like,
And what are you going to do about it? Like, once you recognize, let's say 10 minutes into the dive, 15 minutes into the dive, you realize there's something crawling on my body. I don't know what it is, by the way, because you don't. A scorpion, right. A centipede, a snake. I don't know. What are you going to do about it? Like, you're going to try to kill it you're going to punch in yourself? Like, I don't know. What do you do at that point? You can't abort the dive in terms of if you're in the cave, especially.
Right. Yeah, you have to. You can still end the dive and turn and go back, but you still need to go back. Right?
Yeah, you still have at least, well, in that case, 15 minutes back out of that happening. Man, that has not happened to me yet. Thank God. And it is. I've heard other stories of divers in Texas and other places, Mexico especially as well, of similar things getting into dry suits. But yeah, what is the protocol? Let's call some folks up. Let's find out.
Just so you know, right now for me, if my sock is folded over inside my dry suit, I'm freaking out.
Oh, you prima donna.
It's folded in the toe. I can't imagine if there's like
the next dive we go on together this weekend. I'm gonna slip a fake scorpion or something into your boots. See
drop it in there. So this is where right now the animated spiders are dropping from the ceiling.
That's right. Yeah, Jack will never dive with me again. he's too fearful what I might put in. That's a good one. I like that one. That's a good Reef of Horror story. All right, you ready for? Here's my number two. This one I gave the title of Clam Chowder's Revenge. I'm sure you know where this is going.
Now, before you start this, is like, I like clam chowder. Yes. I'm hoping that it's not going to change my opinion of clam chowder.
I hope it doesn't. It didn't mine. So hopefully it doesn't yours, because I like clam chowder too. A little bit of Tabasco sauce, sometimes the crunchy, sometimes not. Oh, a good clam chowder, just you can't beat it. There's actually a really good lobster spot, a Maine lobster spot in Encinitas that has good clam chowder. So for all you San Diego folks, if you're looking for that, I think it's called the Lobster Shack or something like that, but it's delicious. No, this clam chowder came on a dive trip to the Florida Keys. And I got to tell you, the Florida Keys are just littered with incredible fish shops. I mean, you can get the most incredible fish sandwiches and finish it off with a little slice of key lime pie, and it's a little heaven. And so, I was out there for some training, and we were doing some boat diving that got canceled because of a small hurricane that went through. So we were shore diving for a couple of days, and then the hurricane cleared out. Boats were going out, and we said, all right, great, let's go. And so I wasn't really thinking about, I've never been boat sick. I've never been seasick in my life, but I always still take a Dramamine, the non-drowsy one, the night before, and I take one the morning of, just in case. I've never experienced it, but I take it just in case. Well, this particular day, I didn't. And for lunch that day, we went to this incredible fish shop.
I'm already grossed out.
You're already grossed out. You know, this is going. Don't worry, it has an ending. And we go to amazing fish shop, and I had a fish sandwich, and I just couldn't resist for whatever reason their clam chowder that day. Knowing I was going to dive later, you're going to burn it all off anyway, so it's all right. I'll indulge a little bit. So I had clam chowder, and I had my fish sandwich, and we geared up. We got to the boat on time. La la la. Everything's there. And I remember on the way out to the dive site, it was just choppy as all choppy. And I started to feel a little something I hadn't felt before, which was like, ugh, that doesn't feel good. And then, that really doesn't feel good. And then, oh my gosh, I think I might puke is how I was feeling. So for all of you that have ever felt that seasickness or boat sickness, I now can empathize because it never happened to me before until that day. This is like a year ago or something like that, a little less than a year ago. And so I was, as my, dive teammates describe it, looking green, but holding it together. And of course, the answer to that is get in the water. Get in the water, you'll feel better. Get in the water, you'll feel better. So everyone tells you. Plop on my doubles. We're training. I can't skip the training dive, right? I got to go. So whatever I'm feeling, like I got to go. I got to be the first one in the water. So I get in the water. We descend, still feeling like that's the only thing I'm really thinking about is like, can I actually hold this all together? And I remember throughout that first segment of the dive, there was this feeling. And then it came again. Hold it back. And then all of the things go through your brain of like, they all say if you're going to puke, you can just puke right through the regulator. But ew, that's all I can think about. Hold it together. Ew, that's so gross. Don't do it. The third one came. Oh, no. And finally, I was able to control it. I started to feel better. And by the second half of that dive, I felt back to myself and felt better. So I didn't lose it through the regulator, but that clam chowder had its revenge in the sense that I almost lost it through the regulator. And for all of those that have actually puked underwater, my hat goes off to you because I just can't imagine. Lesson learned, 2 lessons. 1, take the Dramamine dope. Number 1. Which I usually do. I just forgot. And lesson 2 is clam chowder, super heavy things right before you get on a dive boat or right before you're going out for some training. Probably better to make some different food choices at that point. So that was clam chowder's revenge. By the way, have you ever puked through a regulator? I have to ask that one.
I actually did. So, and that was like one of those things that you remember. This is, by the way, all my horror stories happened like years and years ago. Because now I'm like perfect. I mean, perfect. There's no issues at all these days. None whatsoever. No, I remember I had one of those greasy meal type things, and I had one of those little moments of oop, and so I just like let it go underwater. It was actually kind of pleasant, amazingly as it was. So, not to be into much detail, but on land it seemed like throwing up so strenuous, right?
Yeah.
And it was just like I was underwater and just went, I'm just gonna let it go. And it was just like, and the best part was watching the
oh my god. The vomit plumes.
Just like, and I was like, but it wasn't a lot. It was just a little bit. And I was like, and then immediately your next breath in is like air. It's like, oh, that wasn't so bad. On the flip side, I was, when I used to do a lot more like dive tours, I actually had someone pull their regulator out of their mouth and then puke. And then their first reaction was, and I'm like, first I was like, what is this stuff floating by me? Right? And then watching them like trying to like breathe without a regulator, I'm like, panic, trying to shove it back in their mouth. So yeah, lesson for everybody: throw up right in your regulator. It works, but
it works. It cleared it out.
And then just take it as like a cool little animated graphic.
Yeah, your LSD trip underwater of like, whoa, what's happening? All these swirls.
Well, I do have a little side story that's not a pukey story on clam chowder. So there's a local dive boat for San Diego that they always have soup on board. So in between dives, you can have a nice warm bowl of soup. And for some reason this day, I was actually kind of hungry. I try usually, because I don't want to get sick, I try to like wait for the food part. But this day I was actually hungry, and they're like, yeah, just go have some soup. And this was, again, very early on in my diving days. So this is my first time on this boat, so I didn't really know what was going on. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of nice to have some food here. And I'm like, and I go, what is it? And they go, oh, it's clam chowder. And I'm like, oh, I like clam chowder, just like I said. So I'm like, wow, that's great. So I go over and get this, the cup. I didn't do it in a bowl, because you just kind of drink it. So I'm like, put the stuff in, and I'm like walking around, and I'm like going to other divers. I'm like going, really? This is like the worst clam chowder. I can't believe this boat thinks that this is good clam chowder. So I'm like drinking this clam chowder soup going, wow, this is really bad. I'm like, is this rotten? I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, maybe I should stop eating this, so and I'm like, so I stopped partway through and just kind of like threw the rest away. I'm like going, wow, that clam chowder went really bad. I hope I don't get sick from this. And then later on at the end of the dive, I'm like, guys, seriously, that clam chowder is really bad. What do you mean clam chowder? It was mushroom soup. I'm like going, oh. But my brain, I couldn't like distinguish that it was something else. I'm just sitting there thinking the whole time, oh, this is like the worst clam chowder I've ever had.
These clams taste like mushrooms. They must have fungus on them.
I know. It's like, this is the worst.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right, you're number two here. You're number two tail.
So my number two. Now remember, these are, like I said, these are all in the past. And I was diving at La Jolla Cove. And La Jolla Cove, on a very flat, gentle day, and if you get it in the perfect conditions, it's like, seriously, it's like the best dive ever. It's like an aquarium. You got this kelp billowing around, all sorts of stuff going on. And in the springtime, we get taupe sharks. Some people call them dogfish, but it's a small schooling shark. It looks like a reef shark. And they were around. There was also 7 gills around this time, but this day, in particular, I went by myself because these taupe sharks are really shy. They get scared really easy. If you just move, make a sound, boom, they're gone. So I wanted to go out and get some, GoPro video footage of these things. So I'm out there, it's like maybe 30 feet deep in this spot. There's nothing going on. And I find this little school of, what's a group of sharks called? A frenzy? I don't know.
Good question. I don't know.
I think it's a frenzy.
Probably still a school, right?
I don't know. It was a group of sharks. There was about 6 of these taupe sharks, and they're swimming around. And I was like, at this point in time, just if I had a rebreather at the time, it would have been great, but I wasn't. I just had my open circuit. So I just kind of like, instead of just like floating around in the water column, I kind of settled down, and there's these kelp like root balls, I guess. And there's like rocks and stuff. So I'm like settling down behind this, and the kelp's flowing around. And as I'm sitting really quietly, you can see all these sharks starting to swim, and they get closer and closer and closer, right? And it's like, this is awesome. And I'm like looking at all these sharks and going, wow, this is so cool. You can see their eyes. You can see all the details. And then right as this one is coming like right up over me, all of a sudden I got bit.
No way.
And I like let out this scream, and then all the sharks took off. And I look over to see what bit me. It was actually a sheephead, not a shark. So this is see, it's gotcha. This is my shark bite story, right? So I was watching sharks when I got bit by a sheephead. It was a big male sheephead, and because I had my hand on one of the rocks there, and they like eating the crustine, whatever stuff growing on these rocks and stuff, and they have these big teeth that are used for crunching down things. Well, it saw my pinky just kind of like moving ever so slightly, and it bit my whole pinky all the way right down to the knuckle. And I let out that scream, and everyone was like laughing at me. Ha ha ha! You got bit by a sheephead. I'm like going, yeah, it hurt. I'm like going, wait until it happens to you. They're like, oh no, it'll never happen. I mean, it literally feels like someone took a pliers and just like crunches your finger, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like,
exactly.
So yeah, I let out this scream. Of course, years and years later, one of my friends that said, laughing at me, haha, you got bit by a sheephead. It didn't hurt. Of course, he got bit by one. He goes, okay, yeah, that hurt a lot. So I'm not gonna lie, it hurt. I'm like, yeah, see, I told you. So
told you those things hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's one of those things of, I guess this is more like, be aware of your environment. Maybe it's not the actual apex predator that you should be worried about. It should be this little thing. It's like probably 1.5 feet, 2 feet long. Comes up and just takes your finger and bites it.
Have you tried to find that sheephead again and let them know what you thought about that?
Yeah. Go.
Was it on video? Were you like videoing the shark circling? Oh, too bad.
Oh, I have video of the sharks, but not of that moment.
Oh, can you imagine the video of the sharks, and then all of a sudden, and then the video turns off and the camera falls down.
I will have to go look, but it was probably one of those moments of, early on, I have to say my video skills were more along the lines of snowboarding videos versus what is good for underwater. Handheld like this, going, whoa, look at that shark.
Yeah.
It's all shaky cam.
Yeah. That's I have yet to be bit by anything underwater or snapped on anything or anything like that. Except for, I think I told a story a while ago. Maybe it was on an episode with you, where there are these little, they call them sunfish, these little lake fish that hang out in the shallows, and they in this particular dive location get fed by other divers little weenies, like Vienna sausages. They sell them in a little can at the little shack up the road there. And so for whatever reason, it's been this thing that people feed these little, they're not even doing deco stops. They're just like, this is fun to feed the little fish the Vienna sausages.
You weren't in a swimsuit, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. You see, go two ways. I'm going the other way.
Okay.
But not in a swimsuit, in a Speedo. No, I'm kidding. Not in a Speedo. Don't go skinny dipping in this lake, is what Jack's really saying. But no, when you're wearing dry gloves, your hands tend to look a little like a Vienna sausage, apparently. And so you get to like a stop, and you sit there and you're holding, whatever, your 20-foot stop, and all these little sunfish start like accumulating in front of you. And you're like, what are you little Jacko Blinders up to? Like, what are you going to do here, you freaking Jacko? And then all of a sudden you're looking at one on this side, and it's like they're like a hive mind or something. And one of them goes on your left hand, just that little like, boop. You're like, wait, hey, get out of here. Like, then my hand's not a Vienna sauce. And then as you're dealing with that guy, the other guy goes for your other hand. And you spend your stops, on your way up in your ascent, like fighting off sunfish from biting your fingers. So that's the only thing I've ever been bit by, which I don't know if they have teeth. At least I never felt like they did. Both in dry gloves and not dry gloves, so with just my hands. But they're more annoying than painful. It just kind of feels like a I don't know, a chicken peck or something, just like a little pop, like pressure. It doesn't hurt. But other than that, never been bit so far, knock on wood. Is that the only thing you've been bit by underwater, by the way?
No, I'm sure there's plenty of other things. I mean,
There
I've
was
had
that girl you were dating that one time.
No, I think for sure I had like a sunfish type thing too. This would kind of like lead into my third story, but anyways, I grew up around lakes, so yeah, I know there's things. I had like sunfish and stuff. They nibble at you, and of course, all you can think of is like, what is that? It's underwater.
Yeah, get away from me. Yeah. Have you seen those? I don't know if you have any. I saw the shark repellent. I think it's a bracelet that you can wear, or an anklet that you can wear. That's supposed to repel sharks away. Have you seen that thing?
I've seen those because of surfing. That's one of those things that they always used to put in the surf magazines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I guess it's for a diver that's like counterintuitive. It's like, no, why do I want to scare these things away?
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Like my first real shark encounter was bull sharks in Playa. Actually, they come out in around Thanksgiving for that's their pupping season. And by the way, a group of sharks, according to Google, school, frenzy, or shiver. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. SHIVER. Shiver of sharks.
That was the other name.
Yeah, shiver, school, or frenzy. I think I like frenzy better, even though that sounds a little scary. But anyway,
they sound
bull
too
sharks.
Friendly. A group. Hey, buddy.
Group. Hey,
how's it going?
Yeah, they're a school. A school of sharks doesn't sound. So maybe that's why there's a shiver. I wonder if that's true. I wonder how they define that scientifically. A whole nother episode of like, what is the groupings? How do you decide what a grouping of something is named? Is it, I mean, obviously species, but like pelagic fish versus, I don't know. Interesting. Because you just think of all fish that go together are a school for whatever reason, but that's not true.
Well, it's like, what is it? Squid, or like they're called like a squad.
A squad, yeah. Like that one. That's my favorite. Okay, I'll tell my third one, and then it leads into your fourth or your third one. Sounds like so. This tale for our Reef of Horrors episode is a throwback to one of my favorite authors. Also, I think some of the best cinematic amazingness that's ever come out ever, and also this I think labels me as potentially a nerd here or there. So think of me what you will, but I love them. This third tale is titled "My Precious." That's the best I can do. That was horrible. Somewhere Andy Serkis is like, fire that guy. Which, by the way, that guy as Gollum or Smeagol, whichever one you want to adopt, or as both, really. Incredible acting. I mean, gosh, he paved the way. I actually just watched the making of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and fascinating because you see a lot of the same technology that they pioneered in Lord of the Rings for Smeagol, Gollum. Now, I mean, it's just utilized for all kinds of characters for things like Guardians of the Galaxy. So, side note, but my precious. So here's the story. Yeah, everyone out there's going, hey, you little nerd. You like Lord of the Rings? Yes, I do. I think it's a great story.
He's just so you know, Jay says that all the time about his split fins.
That's right. One split fin is named Aragon, and the other one is named I can't. I can't remember his name right now. The elf.
Legolas.
Or Legolas. There it is, Legolas. Man, I can't believe I forgot that. Anyways, my precious. So, on a dive, we are running reel, and I think this was definitely a training dive. One of those really tough training dives. And gosh, seems like all my horror stories come from training dives, but this one did. And, this was the dive that was kind of driving home the point that we need to be able to solve problems underwater, right? Not go to the surface. So no matter how we solve things were going to continue to compound on this dive, right? That's just the way it was going to go. Of course, we didn't know that, but that was the point of the dive. And so we're there, and I was the captain, so I ran the reel, and wherever we were, it wasn't a crazy thing. And we're coming back on the dive, and everything kind of starts to go wrong, right? This guy's out of gas. This guy lost his mask. There goes that guy's, whatever. His deco bottle's gone. It's just compounding. And meanwhile, I'm trying to maintain, the path home. So I'm trying to protect our path home with the reel. Hey, we need to follow the line. And by the way, I'll tell you what I should have done after the story, but I didn't do it in the time. So I'm holding on to this reel because in my mind, it's the lifeline home. Like, this is how we get home. And look, like we all got to share gas and do 7 different ways and figure out some sort of team positioning to make all of this work. But I'm not getting rid of this freaking reel because this is home. If I don't have this, we're screwed. And so, we're going along, and I keep on reeling in a little bit, keep the line tight as best I can. And then this would go wrong. Oh, no, reel it in. I'm not letting go with this hand. I'm gonna deal with you on this hand. You can imagine underwater. And all of a sudden, finally we kind of get things sorted. We're starting to move, and I feel like, okay, we've got to be close to the exit. You're so disoriented at this point. And I start reeling, and as I'm, as you're reeling in, you're looking ahead of you in the line where you're going because you're following that. As I start reeling, the team positioning at this point are 2 divers right in front of me because we're some sort of weird gas sharing configuration at this point because everyone's had problems. And there's 2 divers directly in front of me and then the line. And I remember the diver to my left, it's a good friend of mine now. I remember him turning, and underwater, you can read that body language of just like, this is not going to be good. And
It's
as
the
he
eyes.
turns towards me, I see his eyes, and I go, oh, this is really not going to be good. And he has in his hand the end of the line that's broken off somewhere else. And you just go like, oh my, Lord, or whoever you pray to in that moment, like, the line is snapped. Like, oh my gosh, like, how in the F are we going to get out of here? Like, oh. And so, there's that real feeling of panic. Like, because in my mind, I had built it up so long that, like, this is how we get home, is this reel that, boom, it snapped. We're finally somewhat sorted of all the craziness that had happened. And now the line snapped. And there were 2 thoughts that went through my mind. Like, one, like, holy blah, 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 blah. And the other one was like, the instructor. Like, you cut the line. Like, this one, you're going to cut the line after all this. You're going to cut our freaking line. Oh my gosh. So, the protocol there is to, at this point, put the reel down. It's not doing any good. Not me. No, I'm taking that freaking reel with me wherever we go. It's my lifeline. So you hold on to it. We establish, the direction of, because the line will fall basically straight down in the water, right? So we knew the direction we were heading. We didn't change that. So we decided to search directly ahead of us, right? And, however many kicks forward, 5, 10, however many it was, boom, there was the other end of the line. And, 10 kicks from there, we were on the exit. And so at that point, we were, I think I was told to leave the reel, like, let's get out of here, let's exit, and boom, let's go. So we exit the dive, and we get to the surface, and we're going, oh my gosh, we can't believe we made it through that one. That one was super challenging, blah, blah, blah. The 2 instructors decided, hey, we're going to go down, clean up the mess you guys left down there. So you guys just need to stay on the surface and breathe. And I'll get your reel, don't worry, and blah, blah, blah. We'll take care of it all. So they go underwater, they do their thing, they come back up. All good. We go home. So later that night, in the debrief, the 2 instructors who I have massive tons of respect for and amazing divers their minds are they're just laughing their tails off because they showed us the video, and they said literally they went underwater and they're looking for the reel, and someone found it, and they're thinking to each other at the exact same time. They're thinking the exact same thought. And one of them had pulled out, who didn't have the reel, his wet notes, and wrote down the words, "My precious," and showed it to the other instructor. And the instructor started laughing and started petting the reel. And it's like, of course, because the correct thing to do if you get into that situation, by the way, tie the dang, or bury it in the sand, tie the reel off. You still have the line. You don't need to take it with you, and go home. The reel's not your lifeline. The line is your lifeline. And so follow the line, go home, come back another day and get the reel, or leave it. $100 is done. But not me. I was going to hold on to that freaking reel for dear life, because I made that wrong correlation between the reel and the line, right? At that point, a great learning moment. So that reel, since that day, has now been deemed my precious, has been named my precious. It's written on there in Sharpie. It is now my precious. Nice. I take it with me when I go on wherever I need a reel, and my precious goes with me everywhere I need to. So, the scary part of that dive was finding the end of the line. That wasn't the end of the line. And it turns out, by the way, they didn't cut the line. That was all because of the tugging and pulling. The line snapped by itself from all the pulling and tension that I kept on it. So awesome learning moments, awesome all that. But wow, was it something to see the end of the line, your reel in the hand and a cut line, and not knowing where the heck you're supposed to go was a pretty scary moment. So yeah, my precious.
So did they tell you like later on that you should have done like a lost line type of drill and anchor off at that point and then use the reel to go find the other line?
Well, so we could have done that. The first, because we could see it wasn't a no-viz situation.
Right.
We still could search directly in front. And so we established that's what I really appreciate about all that training too, is like the way that's taught is always, there's no wrong answer. There are just more efficient ways to deal with it. And so our decision at that point, I don't know how many ways hoses were going for share, was like, let's just see, because we know it would fall right there if it was going to fall, if it's there. Mm-hmm. If not, we've got to figure out another strategy, right? And so we got to figure out what to do at this point. So, but yeah, it was fascinating.
That works in a cave. In the ocean, the line's like, it's going all over the place.
Goodbye. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that'd be, I remember like going through the cave class, and it's like, and going through the exercise of a broken line. And it's like, I was always sitting there thinking, oh, where's the line going to go? Because I'm thinking like ocean type stuff. And it's like, line cutter. Oh, look at that. It just dropped right where it was. Like, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So it's funny because everyone feels like cave diving is serious. Let me put it that way. In terms of the planning, in terms of navigation, in terms of, you got to know your stuff. You got to be together. But in terms of the diving part of it, the dealing with current or visibility most of the time, so on and so forth. It's kind of beautiful, nice diving. Like, it's pretty easy diving in that sense. The rest of it's very hard and very serious. But in terms of like clear water, no current, line falls right, in front of you, where it's really nice in that sense. But then there's a lot of other things that are not so nice in terms of, or not that they're not nice, but are much more serious than maybe technical ocean.
You definitely have to take all that stuff seriously, but it is nice if you're in one of those caves and it's, when they talk about 100-foot clear water viz, you get that there sometimes, like, wow, as long as your light can shine out there, you can see, and it's like, not that I have horror stories about cave diving. No, they're all pretty good. I've gone through a few of the scenarios of, like the blown first stage and stuff like that. But again, it's like, because you're trained, prepared, not so scary, right?
Yes.
Because it's like, oh, hey, look at that. My regulator just went. Turn it off.
No big deal. Turn it off. Yeah. No big deal. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's, there obviously there are things that can happen that you can't train for. Right. But a lot of things that we know from a lot of the, accident or malfunction reports, you can train for. So if it's the first time you see it, when it happens on I don't want to say real dive, but on a dive that's not designed for training, yeah, that's a scary moment. But if it's not the first time you've seen it, even if you don't remember the protocol exactly to fix it, or you don't, whatever, you don't do it perfectly, there is this like almost an antibody that gets built mentally that says like, oh, I know how, I've seen this before, I know I can get out of it, like it is that feeling. So yeah, I think there's something to be said about training that isn't necessarily just on a line, but that you're diving and things go wrong to a point. I think that there's also a point where there's just no return on that kind of, I've seen some break me down dives that I just don't like that and agree with that style of training where it's just a break me down dive for the sake of breaking you down. But using your mistakes against you and showing you the logical conclusion, huge proponent. It's taught me a ton. So anyway, this is the Reef of Horrors, not the good training, bad training episode. What am I talking about here?
What do you mean? They go hand in hand.
That's true. That's true.
Sometimes.
All right. What's your third one?
Okay. My third, I never came up with like titles on these things. I'm not that fancy. Third story is maybe not so much a story, but I think a lot of people may sympathize with this and understand where I'm going with this and how it was scary for me. Okay. And how it has affected me. Okay. So this is kind of like, oh, Jack's like going to get all like open book weepy type thing. So going back a little bit of history. Okay. So I'm this kid who played ice hockey. I was the guy who, built a jump with the bike and would jump off it, no helmet. I was one of those kids, doing all these dramatic things, right? And there was a time I went to a movie in my youth. No one told me it was supposed to be scary. They just said, "Oh yeah, it's a movie about sharks." Okay, so you're all going to understand where this is going eventually. So I'm at this movie theater, and okay, so if you, by the way, if you haven't seen this movie in the actual theater on a big screen, you won't understand the feeling that you get. It's totally different if you watch it on TV, even if it's a big screen TV. It's not the same. So here I am, this kid just thinking, oh, shark movie. Okay, let's see what's going on. And obviously the movie is Jaws. So I'm sitting there watching this thing, and then the first thing that pops out is this music, right? The all that noise, right? And I'm like going, oh, this is, I'm like, whoa, this is weird. So like I should learn all these movie things, right? As a kid, it was like really impactful for me. And it's like the very first scene, the head pops out of the front of the boat, and I'm just like, okay, I'm done. I'm out of here. Can I go? I'm like going, no. So then we go through the whole thing, the woman's being tossed around and all that stuff. And I'm like, finally, once we got to the actual scene of the shark, and everyone's, it's so fake looking. I'm like, at this point in time, my mind as a kid is just like, screw water.
I'm never taking a bath again.
I am not kidding. I had, after that movie, watching that, and by the way, I think it's a great movie. I've watched it, I don't know how many times now. Maybe it's because it's like, it affected me so
facing your
profoundly
fears or something. Yeah.
When I was young. No, there's actually times like I'd be in the pool, like friends' pools, and I'd go, okay, yeah, it's in a pool. What am I thinking? But I was like this little kid, right? I'm like freaking out. And then this is where I wanted to jump to, like, as I got older. Okay, my adventurous spirit still stayed intact. Like things like going jet skiing at night in these lakes. which is maybe not the smartest thing to do. I would go rock climbing. I'm the guy who would free climb things and look down and go, oh, look, I'm like 100 some feet up off the ground standing on this little edge. Like, no big deal. So it wasn't, I was very confident in my abilities, athletic abilities and all these things. But man, you know, the just jet skiing thing at night, the mosquitoes were so bad that we were wading in the water, because this is Minnesota, by the way. Mosquitoes, it's a real legit thing. If one of those was in my dry suit, I would be freaked out, to say blood everywhere. So I'm sitting in the water waiting for my turn to go next on this thing, and I'm sitting there going, it's black, it's dark water, can't see any lights. You hear this thing out there in the lake driving around. We didn't have lights. It's stupid. I mean, it's literally the stupid thing to do as a kid. And I'm sitting there in the water. All of a sudden, my mind starts venturing to this movie again. Right? I'm
no!
I'm in a lake. I'm in a lake. It's fresh water. My brain is just like going, okay, crap. There's something in here. It's going to bite me. And I'm always thinking like, oh, maybe it's a snapping turtle, or there's going to be like some northern pike or some fish with teeth that's going to bite me. And then just as I'm thinking all this stuff, little sunfish or little things start nipping at my legs. And I'm like, I was like out of the water in like seconds up on the deck. And I'm like, screw this. I'm going home.
Bite me mosquitoes all you want.
I was like out of the water. But it's those kinds of things that has, like, even going down the road, right? I moved to California. I started surfing. I'm always doing this in the water. I can't see down there. Someone goes, leopard shark. I'm like, leopard shark. Okay, this is before I knew leopard sharks were. I'm like, leopard shark. I don't want to, like, taking my feet up out of the water, stuff like that. And so there was always this like fear of like what was underwater that I couldn't see. Right. And that's always been kind of like this little phobia. And then all of a sudden I started scuba diving. It was like, where are the sharks? You know, because every time you get out of the water, you know, or at the ocean, you go, hey, did you see a shark? And you're like, no, dang it, I wanted to see one. You know, it's like they're not as big and scary as my brain has made them up to be throughout my whole life, right? Even surfing, I would like, okay, I got to go surfing. The wave. Oh, someone said there's white sharks out there today. I'm like, if I don't see it, I'll be fine. I'll just surf.
Yeah.
You know, but later on, but scuba diving, that's kind of like eased those fears. And I've moved into, you know, going on shark dives in the Bahamas, you know, with the great hammerheads, going to Jupiter, Florida, you know, diving with tiger sharks and all that stuff. And then even La Jolla Shores, I was in there diving with those sharks and not having that fear standpoint. Other than, remember I was saying that there's 7 gill sharks around. The first time I saw a 7 gill shark, I was with a group of people and I was kind of like leading the way because like I supposedly knew where I was going, but I just knew I go this way and then turn left and turn. So I was a leader. Follow me. And it was like, okay, this seems like the place where we turn left. So I'm like looking back over my right shoulder, like, hey, we're going to go over here. And I see these people behind me kind of like looking at me kind of weird. And I turn this way and just like an arm's length away is a big, huge, like 8-9 foot 7 gill shark right next to me. And I'm like, first thing was like, and I'm like, and then my second thought was like, seriously, where's the music?
Yeah.
I'm like, you can't just sneak up on me and not make a sound. You know, it's in the water. But so part of this is like, you know, my phobias growing up and then how they've eased with time. There's still that fear factor. I mean, I'm going to reference back to when I was beginning to dive, you know, because I'm an expert now. I would go on, you know, like, let's go lobster diving. I'm like, that was kind of scary. You're down there literally by yourself with the little light trying to surge, just pushing you around and all this stuff. And then you don't know what these shadows are. And it's just kelp moving around, right? So you're like, that was just kelp, right? And then you're freaking out. So my brain again goes to this whole shark thing, and then next day, and this is when I was working at the Union Tribune, so I had instant access to the news. And it's like shark sighted at blah blah blah, and I'm like, that's where I was diving last night by myself looking for lobsters. And that whole time I'm sitting there thinking, wow, something's watching me. It wasn't maybe it wasn't just kelp. So yeah, so that's that fear part, not knowing what's there,
I wonder how many people have got a complex from Steven Spielberg, from that movie at this point around sharks. Like, by the way, have you gone and seen Bruce? So the name of the fake shark was Bruce. Did you ever get a chance to see him at Universal?
Yes, I've gone up there and seen it, and yes, in person, it's like that's not so impressive, but
yeah,
in the movie, and if you ever get a chance to see it on a big screen with the full-on sound system, and recently they did a rerun of that, probably like 5 years ago, in one of the theaters here in San Diego, and there's only like a dozen people in the theater. It was awesome. It like brought all those things right back, because it was the sound, the dark, and especially in this theater that time, because there weren't a lot of people in there. So I was like isolated, and I tend to put myself in these environments. So it's definitely different than watching on a TV from your couch. I mean, it was like, it's a good movie.
Yeah, I had two takeaways from your story. One is like, yeah, why haven't sharks biologically evolved to, whenever they're swimming, they make that sound,
sounds
like through their gills, like da, 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 da. And then when they get closer, it just gets more intense and faster. Like it should, right? I mean, come on, where's the intelligent design in that, right? Come on.
Yeah, they need a soundtrack.
Yeah, they need their own, like, yeah, exactly. I mean, they need something, yeah. And then the other thought that popped in my head is, wouldn't that just be because I think you can get underwater speakers now, like that can play music underwater. I don't know how you'd pull it off, but there are some new like iPhone, apps or iPhone cases, and maybe Bluetooth works underwater. I don't know, but wouldn't it be funny if you could take a speaker with you, and then like halfway through a dive in kind of a weird spot, you just hit play on the Jaws theme.
Well, that not quite happened, but obviously with a dry suit, you're dry. I had a tendency for a while there to forget I had my phone in my pocket. Which is not a big deal because you're dry. But I was down underwater and like going, and boats do play their speakers down towards the water, and you can hear it while you're diving. So I'm like sitting there thinking, I'm down there diving at the shores, and I hear this music. I'm going, wow, whoever is on the boat out there is playing music I really like. It sounds like my soundtrack. Wow, they're just playing all the music I like, and they're going through. And then finish
Britney
the dive,
Spears, like the Britney
get to the
Spears
car,
classics.
and I'm like going, oh, my phone's in my pocket. And I hold it up, and I'm like, oh, it's been playing my playlist the whole time.
Man, I think I'm going to cough a lung up. That's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, you can hear so much better under the water. Now, there you go, dry suit, and you just got to figure out how to like get it to play and then stop. Punch yourself.
I'm thinking with that new Apple Watch.
There you go. We have a prank to pull on some of our dive team. That would be
just download that soundtrack and then go beep,
beep, yeah, right by their ear. Just swim right above them, and put your arm with your watch right by their ear,
right in their six, so they can't see you.
Yeah, they can't see you. They won't know you're there, and they'll hear this. Dun, 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 dun. Oh my gosh, that'd be hilarious! I feel like I'm gonna put a fake scorpion in your boots, and you're gonna play the Jaws song to me halfway through a dive on our next one, and then we'll come back into an episode together where we like yell at each other about how mad we are.
But all that stuff. That's what makes it fun. You got all these stories that you go forward with. Of all the, just like now we're talking about these things, right? These are all that camaraderie. Talking about stuff. I mean, that's why it's like great to go out and have food after diving, besides, getting hungry while diving.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully not.
Exactly.
Hopefully get some better clam chowder than that mushroom soup.
Than that mushroom soup. Yeah, next time it'll be zebra mussel chowder. There you go. Let's call a diver that rhymes with Deucer Annual and see if he can provide some of our zebra mussels for our next soup here. Well, good, Jack. Well, thank you for doing this on the Reef of Horrors. Cue the scary music episode. I had a blast.
Look around.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, I'm sure Daniel has added I don't know how many sound effects now, which is a lot of fun. But thanks for joining me. I had a blast, and yeah, Jack is works for a company called DUI, Diving Unlimited International. And if you are interested in a dry suit, or you've been thinking about one, Jack is your man to talk to. Literally, reach out to Jack. Jack, what's your email that they can get a hold of you?
This JDER at divedui.com.
There you go, JDER at divedui.com. Reach out to Jack if you've been thinking about it, or you just want to kick the tires and learn more about dry suits. I got my dry suit from Jack. I love it. I've been using it every dive I've been on since. So I highly endorse DUI's products and think they're great. And so, yeah, check them out. And if you want to learn more about the dive table or get the next episode that comes out, make sure that you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also check us out at thedivetable.com. Thanks for joining us today on the Reef of Horrors. And we hope to have you back on the next episode of The Dive Table.